Some of the greatest stories in history, they aren't really about business strategy or market share. Nope. They're about pure, raw ego. And this is one of those stories. A battle fought not in some boardroom, but on a racetrack at over 200 miles per hour. And it was all because of a deeply personal grudge between two absolute titans of the car world. It all kicked off with a single, furious command. And this is it, this one quote. Go to Le Mans and beat his ass. That's not a corporate mission statement, right? That is a declaration of war from Henry Ford II, and it was aimed squarely at one man, Enzo Ferrari. And this whole thing started because of a business deal that went spectacularly wrong. So how did we even get here? To understand that level of pure rage, we have to rewind the clock a bit, back to 1963. Now, Ford Motor Company, they were famous for making solid, reliable family cars, but they wanted something they didn't have: sex appeal, speed, a racing pedigree. And the fastest way to get that? Just buy it. Their target was the most legendary name in racing, Ferrari. And let me tell you, Ford was not messing around. They put $10 million on the table to buy the little Italian company. Now, that was a gigantic amount of money back then. It just shows you how serious Henry Ford II was about adding that famous prancing horse to his own collection. But here's the thing about Enzo Ferrari. He wasn't your typical CEO. People called him Il Commendatore, the commander. He lived and breathed racing. So when his lawyers found the clause in the contract that said Ford would control the racing budget, well, for Enzo, that was it. Deals off. Racing was the very soul of his company, and that soul was not for sale. And he didn't just walk away quietly. Oh no. He delivered some of the most calculated, personal insults you can imagine, right to the faces of Ford's executives. He called their cars ugly little cars, made in big, ugly factories. And then he personally told Henry Ford II that he wasn't half the man his famous grandfather was. And that one moment, this whole thing stopped being business. It became a blood feud. And really, when you look at it, maybe this deal was just doomed from the start. I mean, you had two completely different universes colliding. You've got Ford, a corporate behemoth from Dearborn, Michigan, the masters of the assembly line. And then you've got Ferrari, this tiny boutique workshop in Maranello, Italy, driven by one man's singular obsession with winning races. It was a culture clash waiting to happen. So Henry Ford II flies back to Detroit absolutely steaming mad, humiliated. And his new mission wasn't to buy a Ferrari anymore. It was to build a car that could hunt one down and destroy it on the world's biggest stage, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, a race, by the way, that Ferrari had owned for years. Now look, Ford had all the money and manufacturing power in the world, but they didn't have that racing magic, that soul. So what do? You go out and hire it. They brought in Carroll Shelby, a charismatic Texan who'd actually won Le Mans himself, and Ken Miles, a notoriously difficult but absolutely brilliant driver and engineer. These were the two guys tasked with turning Ford's money into a true Ferrari-Killer. But at first, it was an absolute train wreck, a disaster. In 1964, not a single one of their cars even finished the race. 1965 was somehow even worse. More breakdowns, cars literally catching on fire. And of course, Ferrari won again. The entire world was laughing at Ford, which just made them even more determined to win in 1966. The team quickly figured out the single biggest thing holding them back: the brakes. See, the Ford GT40 was incredibly fast, hitting over 200 miles an hour. But when you try to slow down from that speed, the brakes would glow cherry red and just melt. They'd completely fail. And you can't really win a 24-hour race if, your car can't stop. So the solution they came up with was just genius. They basically said, okay, what if we stop trying to make the brakes last for 24 hours? Instead, they designed the entire brake system, the discs, the calipers, the whole shebang, as one single piece that you could swap out in a pit stop in seconds. It was a completely legal workaround, and it totally changed the game. All right, so that brings us to Le Mans 1966, the showdown. This wasn't just a race anymore, it was the final battle. Ford showed up with an army of cars and engineers, backed by a blank check from Henry Ford himself. Ferrari arrived with their beautiful, proven cars, probably feeling pretty confident they'd win again. The whole race really hinged on this one legendary piece of asphalt. a straightaway that was nearly 4 miles long where cars hit their absolute top speed. This is where Ford's raw American power and Ferrari's refined Italian engineering would go head-to-head for 24 brutal hours. And to make things even crazier, as night fell, the heavens just opened up, pouring rain. I mean, can you imagine driving at those speeds, in the pitch black, in the wet? It was just a nightmare. This is what endurance racing is all about, pushing man and machine way past their limits. And this is where Ford's strategy just crushed the competition. Ken Miles was like a machine. He set this absolutely punishing, relentless pace, lap after lap after lap. He basically dared the Ferraris to keep up with him, and they tried, but their engines just couldn't take it. Pushed too hard for too long, they started to overheat, to sputter, and to fail, one by one. So when the sun finally came up, the war was over. Ferrari was broken. Ford had done it. They had achieved their goal. But the drama? Oh, it was not done yet. In the final hours, a new fight started, not with Ferrari, but inside Ford's own camp. I mean, just picture the scene. After all those years of failure and public humiliation, you look up at the scoreboard and it's Ford, 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 first, second, and third place. It was total, complete, utter domination. The message to Enzo Ferrari had been delivered loud and clear. So, of course, Ford's marketing guys see this and their eyes light up. They're thinking, photo up, let's get all 3 of our cars crossing the finish line together to show what a great team we are. But this one corporate decision would lead to one of the most controversial and heartbreaking finishes in all of racing history. They told Ken Miles, the driver who was in the lead, the guy who had done more than anyone to develop this winning car, to slow down and let the other Fords catch up for the photo. He did what he was told. But because of a weird, obscure Le Mans rule about where the car started on the grid, the photo finish dead heat actually meant he was officially placed second. The man who earned the win had it stolen from him for a picture. So what did all this cost? Get this, an estimated $25 million. And remember, that's in 1960s money. Today, that's well over $200 million. This proves it was never, ever about profit. It was about revenge, plain and simple. So, what's the lasting legacy here? Well, this rivalry pushed car technology forward like crazy, especially with things like brakes and aerodynamics. It also proved that a giant corporation, if it's angry enough, can absolutely out-innovate a lone genius. And for Ferrari, the fight was so expensive that Enzo eventually had to sell a big part of his company to Fiat. So in a weird, ironic twist, Ford got what it wanted, just not for them. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question. This whole incredible saga, all the innovation, the genius, the heartbreak, it was all fueled by the bruised ego of one man and the stubborn pride of another. It just goes to show you, sometimes the biggest leaps forward are powered by our most human and, yeah, our most petty emotions. So when a grudge drives innovation, who really wins?